A big welcome to 2023, everyone. This is King Kaiju, and throughout all of 2022, and obviously many years before that, the phrase go woke, get broke has entered and existed in the vernacular. What I've done now for you is collated, rather unscientifically, I must admit, some of the best and most popular woke films from 2022 and the non-woke films of 2022, put them side by side, took a look at the numbers, and now we have, at least in my brief examination of the issue, the answer to the question of, if you go woke, do you get broke? All right, so as you can see on the screen here, I have created a spreadsheet with sort of, again, not the most scientific methodology ever created. I'll explain it in a second, but basically in a nutshell, I couldn't take every single film that was made by every studio. I not have the time to do that, and it might even be difficult for me to kind of determine which are woke and which are not woke, because I'd have to watch all of them. So basically I took the top 8 films that I could find that were sort of the most popular. That is to say, they were in the sort of zeitgeist of society. People would kind of recognize them. And then B, had a very clear either woke or not woke agenda to them, okay? You will notice quickly at the bottom of this, there are 3 films, Doctor Strange 2, Jurassic World Dominion, and Avatar Way of the Water that I did not put on here. Arguments could be made for both sides, that they were woke or what they were not woke, or that they're sort of a combination in the middle. Plus, in all honesty, Avatar Way of the Water would skewer these results pretty hardcore on either side of the aisle. So that's why those are left off. Now, that being said, let's take a little bit of a dive. To give you an idea, I basically took the title, the budget, what the gross was, and then a ratio. And the ratio is really, really important because we're dealing with drastically different budgets for a lot of these films. So let's just take right off the top bat, Thor Love and Thunder, $250 million budget, $760 million gross. It's pretty easy to be like, wow, it made $510 million. That's freaking awesome. Then you go and you look at like Bros, and it's a $22 million budget with a $14 million gross. How does that relate? How does that translate? So I did a ratio or a percentage. And I say percentage because, again, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a statistician. I wanted to keep it as simple as I could and do this quick. So for example, Bros, as I just talked about, that negative 37 is basically it made back 37% less of what its budget was, okay? So back up to the top, Thor Love and Thunder, a ratio of 304 basically means that it made back 3.04 times its budget, okay? And so 250 times 3.04 gives us 760. Okay, real simple. The last column there under the woke is previous, so it found it to be very interesting and quite an eye-opener that the 3 films on the woke list, Thor Love and Thunder, Halloween Ends, and Wakanda Forever, all 3 had sequels that were not, in fact, woke. Were not. So instead of putting all the information, I just put the ratio of that sequel on there as well. Okay, not going to go line by line, film by film. You can do a freeze frame and take a look at this later if you would like. Arguments can be made on my selections, etc., etc. But basically, in a nutshell, what is really important are the cumulative numbers at the bottom. So the first one, on the woke side, the average budget, adding those all up and dividing by 8, gives us $108 million. Now, interestingly enough, if we go to the not woke side and we look at the average budget and we do the same thing, we get 123. So they're really not spending a radically different amount on average, of course, for a woke versus a not woke film. But now we get into the differences. The average gross of a woke film is $280 million. The average gross of a non-woke film is $460 million. So now we start to go and say, okay, again, those numbers are a little bit so let's look at the ratios. That's really the most important. On the woke films, they are making, on average, 1.82 times their budget. Now, that number is fascinating on a couple of fronts. Okay, first and foremost, they're making money, on average. Okay, so the whole get woke, go broke seems like there might be some slight damage to it because, honestly, just about any other financial endeavor, if you're making back 1.82 times your investment, you're doing pretty damn good. However, the big asterisk on all of this is I just used gross numbers from Box Office Mojo. These are the bottom line numbers of gross ticket sales, ticket income worldwide. I wanted to go worldwide to give it a chance. However, what we do know is that the money split in foreign countries is very different. So they aren't actually making that full amount. A. B, we're just looking at the budget, not the budget plus marketing, distribution, replication, translation, blah, 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 blah. Those, depending upon which source you want to go to, can account for an additional 50 to 100% of the budget. There is sort of a golden rule in Hollywood when looking at films. They need to make back somewhere between 2 and 2.5 times their budget in order to break even when you account for budgeting, marketing, and overseas ticket split. That's the average, that's the number. The bottom line on that number is 2 times the budget, and woke films are clocking in at 1.82 times. So woke films, going by those sort of traditional, somewhat not 100% accurate, but general guideline Hollywood rules, the woke films are money losers. Okay, jump over to the not woke, and the not woke ratio is 4.45 times its budget on average, far exceeding the high-end range of 2.5 on Hollywood estimates. That is a pretty obvious answer to the question, if you go woke, do you get broke? And the answer is yes, from the standpoint as while they're making money, quote unquote, they're not all in the negative like a Bros or a She Said, as you can see from the chart. On average, they're making less money than it costs to not just make them, but to distribute them in the minus ticket sales cuts that you take in. There is one final column that is the biggest eye-opener for me at all, and that is these 3 woke films. Thor Love and Thunder, Halloween Ends, and Wakanda Forever all had non-woke films prior to them. These were all sequels or threequels or whatever you want to call them. And I looked at the ratio on their previous entry. So for Thor Ragnarok, it pulled in 4.73 times its budget. Halloween Kills pulled in 6.65 times its budget. And Black Panther 1 pulled in 6.91 times its budget. Averaging those up, 6.09 times the budget is what you made on a non-woke project. And then that number dropped down on average to 1.82 when you went woke. All right, from those numbers, it seems to be very clear. I didn't do anything with television because obviously in this streaming day and age, it's impossible to get numbers. It's very easy to say, oh, well, look at, this score and that score. I also didn't look at that. Rotten Tomato scores are completely useless. IMDb scores a little more reliable, but not so much. This was done just to look at pure numbers for budgets and grosses, distribution, ticket sales splits, that sort of thing, with the best knowledge that I have, not being an accountant for Sony Pictures, okay? Nonetheless, the numbers are there. They're in black and white, both figuratively and literally. If you go woke, you may not go broke instantly. We did see that they were making some money off these films, but they were consistently, at least on average, losing their shirt time and time and time again. If you look at the breakdown of the individual films, you see that there was really only 2 big, huge money losers, but there were a lot of money losers in there that might have made more than what their budget was, but not more when you factor in marketing, promotion, and ticket sales. So there you have it, my non-scientific answer to the question, at least in 2022, at least in the film genre, and with the 8 films I picked on each side. And again, I attempted to be fair. I didn't try to skewer it as best I can, just based on what I've seen, knowledge I had. So, what do you guys think? Let's break it down and see. You probably have some good suggestions. I definitely want to hear about it.